Hello and welcome to another episode of the Connect Cape Fear podcast, a show where people from all over come to find connection and community in this great place that we call home. My guest today is Dr. Allen Holmes, who is the attending physician at BioSymmetry of Wilmington. Dr. Holmes, welcome. Did I get that right? Attending physician? I never know.
Yeah, well, I guess attending physician is more in the hospital setting rather than the office setting, but whatever works.
But you came from a hospital setting, right?
Sure,
we were talking about that. Give people a little bit about your background and how long you've been in Wilmington, what you've been doing in medicine, and then we'll tell them all about BioSymmetry of Wilmington.
Yeah, so originally from West Virginia, was an emergency physician for 19 years, started out 6 of those in West Virginia, moved to Wilmington about 11 years ago, worked in the New Hanover ER system for quite a few years, and then transitioned to BioSymmetry about 2.5 years ago.
Okay. For people who are, don't know the medical profession, what is the difference between owning a clinic like BioSymmetry of Wilmington and working in emergency care?
Sure. In emergency care, it's shift work. You go on duty, you work your 8 hours, 12 hours, whatever that may be, whether it's daytime or nighttime. And you're kind of working within the larger hospital system versus a clinic setting. It's more like office hours. It's, Monday through Friday or maybe Monday through Thursday.
That'd be a better life on you, right?
Absolutely better life for sure. Daytime work is better than nighttime work for sure. Yes.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about it off camera too, as well as my wife has a similar background to you. The working in a hospital environment, especially an emergency hospital environment, adds a lot to your clinic that you have now.
For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Just the experience of the different types of disease processes, the different types of patients that you meet, all that experience kind of winds up to how do you approach the person in the office.
Yeah. How do you like Wilmington? You've been here for, you said 12 and a half, 13 years now?
Yeah, going on 12 years.
Okay.
Absolutely love Wilmington. I did my residency training at East Carolina in Greenville. So when we happened to have a weekend off and a couple bucks in our pocket, Wilmington's where we came.
Yeah.
And we said, someday that would be a great place to live. And it took a few years, but we landed here about 12 years ago and absolutely love it.
I did the same thing, but it was in the Marine Corps. So I was up at Camp Lejeune. So we had a couple days off and literally a couple bucks in our pocket. We're like, we're going to Front Street.
There you go, for sure. Yep.
And then fell in love with it the same way. I was like, man, I want to make this place home.
Yeah.
So how have you seen the community change, from your perspective as being a medical professional over the last 11, 12 years?
Sure. Obviously, it goes without saying it's certainly growing. The population's growing, as is the infrastructure and such. But I think the other thing, particularly from an emergency or medical standpoint, is that a lot of people living here are older. And they've got a lot of medical problems.
Yeah.
And that kind of, maybe complicated isn't the right word, but it makes it all a bit more difficult to provide everybody the proper care in the way they need it. And in a timely fashion.
Yeah. Well, and what you do is so different than what hospitals are treating symptoms, right?
Yeah.
What you're doing is you're optimizing human performance in a number of different ways, through hormone replacement therapy, medically supervised weight loss.
Yep.
So you're looking at more of like, hey, let's get ahead of some of these things now, right?
Exactly.
Versus like, hey, you got in a serious car accident, I got to put you back together.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. What I was finding in the ER was I felt like I was on the wrong side of the problem. I'm putting emergency Band-Aids on things that had someone got to them 5 years earlier or 10 years earlier and optimized them then and kind of changed their health then, maybe the hip fracture doesn't happen in the 75-year-old.
Yeah.
Maybe the sepsis doesn't happen, or the diabetes and that sort of thing and all the complications of it doesn't happen had somebody intervened earlier on the other side of the problem and kind of preventing it.
That's becoming increasingly popular.
Yes.
I think, especially with people in our generation, 30s, 40s, 50s. We're looking at people in their 60s, 70s, and 80s and looking at how their lifestyle was in the 80s, 90s, and early 2000s, and processed food, and just the way we've kind of changed as a society. And I know I'm personally looking at it, staring down the barrel of 40, going, man, I want my 40s to dictate what my 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s will look like. So a whole mindset shift on that, right? Where it's like we're gonna focus in on the now, what we can control, so we don't have to. I don't have to be in an emergency room when I'm 65, worrying about COPD or heart problems or anything like that. So how does that feel for you as a provider then to be doing that, getting out ahead of it instead of waiting for them to come through those double bay doors on a stretcher?
Yeah. I find it actually significantly more fulfilling. I mean, people would say, "Oh, you're in the ER, you save lives," and yes, that is part of the job. And I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it. It's good. It's good work. And my colleagues that are still in the ER, they're doing fantastic work every day. But to prevent some of this suffering from happening and prevent some of these things from happening, and educating patients on it doesn't have to be that way. You're not necessarily have to end up as a diabetic or with a heart attack someday. There are things you can do now, and just as you alluded to, right now in your 40s, you're building your 50 and 60-year-old self. And how you approach that is what the product is you're going to end up with. Yeah,
let's talk about something that you just touched on right there, because you're like, you don't have to have diabetes. You don't have to give it to yourself. But I hear a lot of people like, oh, I've got precursors for this, or it's genetic, or it's hereditary, anything like that. And then I listened to the Hubermans of the world, or the Rogans, these big podcasters that have interesting conversations with people like you in your profession. And they're like, no, there's actually a lot of things that you can do, from diet, exercise, lifestyle, hormone regulation, stress management. Talk a little bit about that if you can. Like if my mom and dad have type 2 diabetes, or am I definitely going to be somebody who's on that path too as well? Or can I interdict somewhere in my life with the help of a professional like you?
Yeah. And diabetes is probably a great example to use. Is there a genetic predisposition for someone to have type 2 diabetes? Yes, probably. But that doesn't mean they have to be a type 2 diabetic. And what I mean by that is lifestyle modifications matter. Type 2 diabetes is insulin resistance. And insulin resistance is too much carbohydrates and processed sugars in your diet. So if you prevent those things or eliminate those things largely from your diet, and you add in exercise and strength training and the other necessary things, hormone optimization being a part of that, you can prevent the type 2 diabetes. Will it be harder for some people than other people? Absolutely. So we all get the cards we get dealt, but there are things we can do, and it's not a foregone conclusion.
So let's talk about some of those things that you offer at your clinic that help with that. Obviously, you do medical weight loss, medically supervised weight loss. Maybe we start with that one. What's the difference between medically supervised weight loss and Hollywood fad weight loss stuff, or non-physician assisted or supervised weight loss programs that exist?
Sure, and certainly this is a hot topic right now with these miracle injections and semaglutide and all this stuff. You can lose weight a whole bunch of different ways. But when someone says they want to lose weight, that's not really what they're saying. What they're saying is, what they mean, is they want to lose fat and they want to maintain muscle. And that's an entirely different process. We can starve ourselves and get skinny. That doesn't mean we're healthy. And in most of these fad diets that are out there, or crash diets, there's a bunch of different ways to do it. You lose the weight, but the minute you go back to any semblance of the way you were before, all the weight goes back on, if not more, because you killed your metabolism in the process. Versus a medically supervised program where we are focused on fat loss, we are heavily focused on maintaining muscle mass and all of the things we need to put in place to make that happen, gives you a much better outcome in the end in terms of body composition, and probably most importantly, your ability to stay there. Because it doesn't mean anything if you lose 30 pounds, if you put the 30 pounds right back on. It was all for naught.
So are they working, what's the process look like with you guys? Are they coming to see you weekly? Are we tracking calories, exercise levels? What's the...
we have an initial intake where we do a lot of lab work and a lot of testing. Because the first question is why are you struggling with your weight? Is it simply because you eat too much? Okay, we can address that with behavioral modification. Or is there some underlying metabolism thing? Are you already insulin resistant, which is leading to added... So we get a big picture, a very clear picture of where they're at. And then based on those results, that's how we implement the program. Whether that involves just diet and exercise, or maybe the help of medication to address some of these issues. And then we see them monthly. And we're kind of coaching them through, where's our diet at? Where's our protein intake at? All these aspects of the program. And periodically we're doing body composition testing. Because again, it's not just about the scale. It's about losing fat, maintaining or gaining muscle. And so we track all that very meticulously along the way.
Are there you talked a little bit about it, like, if you do the semi-glutides, there's a chance that you put the weight right back on if you don't change your lifestyle and stuff. And we talked about crash diets and things like that. Are there actual diets that you can maintain over time? Like keto had a huge pop, and then we saw carnivore, and then Mediterranean's my favorite because I just love Mediterranean food. I can eat it all the time. Is there a diet that you guys recommend, or is that based off of what your lab results are?
It's very individual, and anyone that says the only way to lose weight is X diet, they're wrong. It's just not like that. The best diet is the one you'll stick to, because you can say that a carnivore diet is the best way to lose weight, but if you don't like meat, that's not the diet for you, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of it has to do with what's the underlying problem. If they're insulin resistant and they have, way too much sugar in their diet, certainly part of their diet is going to be eliminating a lot of those carbs and sugar.
Yeah.
But if they're not at all insulin resistant and it's more a metabolism thing, well, then that's a different approach. Maybe they don't need to get as strict on their carbohydrates. So it's very, very individual.
Yeah. That's super, super interesting stuff. So when you do how often is the hormone levels interconnected to how I look and feel?
Yep. More often than we think.
Really? Okay.
And it's one of those things where we don't look at it probably often enough, whether that's from testosterone or whether that's thyroid hormone. Certainly women, as they enter the perimenopause, menopause years, and all of a sudden I'm 25 pounds heavier and I didn't do anything different, that's all hormone related.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So are you seeing that is growing? Is I guess what I'm getting at is, is this lifestyle that we've seemed to become a little bit more accustomed to in the U.S. now in 2024, are you seeing hormone level disparities increasing than maybe what previous generations had to deal with? Like, are those two things connected?
For sure.
I'm fishing around in the dark right now.
Yeah. No. It's a great point because male testosterone maybe is the best example. Is that younger and younger men have low testosterone levels, and why is that? And there's what's termed endocrine disruptors. So there's a lot of things in our environment, plastics in our food, all this type of things, stress levels, long work hours, alcohol intake, all these things that are affecting the hormone production in the body, and then therefore lead to all these other problems, whether it be weight or what have you.
Yeah, I run into a lot of people, or listen to a lot of people too, that talk about endocrine disruptors, all the environmental toxins or toxins that are in our food or just things that shouldn't be in the human body.
Yep.
So do y'all start with like a detox program too, like flush all that stuff out and then, hey, let's rebuild lifestyle on top of that?
Yep.
Or is that all interconnected?
So we don't do that.
Okay.
Now there are functional medicine doctors you could go to do that, and that's a very reasonable approach.
Yeah.
But a lot of that, in my opinion, becomes quite impractical.
Okay.
Because unless we're going to put ourselves in a plastic bag or live in a cocoon, we sort of have to live life the way it is. If we're going to go to restaurants, we're going to kind of get what we get. We're going to be out in public. We're going to be around all these things, and it's quite hard to completely eliminate all those things. Even if you got them out, they're coming back the very next time you go out into the environment that exposed you to it. So that happens to be not our approach, because I think a little bit of those solutions aren't practical.
Yeah, especially with how with the way everything is right now, right? So maybe it's a moderation. If you're somebody who's like super worried about that stuff, you got to know it's unavoidable in many respects, but you can take other measures to offset it. And
certainly, I mean, there are simple fixes. Let's use an aluminum water bottle instead of a plastic water bottle. Let's not have fluoride in our toothpaste. There are these things that, yes, that's very reasonable to do and doesn't move the needle, probably so. But I don't think there's a scenario where you're just going to eliminate all these disruptors and be in this nirvana of environment.
Yeah, get all the glyphosate away from you from everywhere.
Exactly.
I don't know how you do it, but you got to try for it. Well, it's awesome. So your clinic serves men, serves women.
Yep.
Do you specialize in either, or like who is the customer? If somebody's watching this and they're like, I want to book time at BioSymmetry of Wilmington. Who are we talking to?
So certainly from the medical weight loss standpoint, it's the person that has struggled with their weight. They want to know why, and they want to lose it the right way, for sure. And then there are men and women, and it's equal. Of they feel like something's off. I eat pretty good. I try to exercise. I don't feel good. My energy's down. My focus is down. These types of things, and oftentimes the cause of that is hormones. Whether it be testosterone for men or whether it's estrogen or testosterone for women, which is very important as well. And so that's the population. The people that want to feel their best, that they know something's off and the traditional medical system hasn't found it for them yet. That's us.
Yeah, traditional medical system isn't checking for any of this stuff either, right?
Very rarely. And the reason they don't check for it is because in their training they don't address it. And that's not their fault. I mean, there are brilliant, fantastic, excellent providers in Wilmington and elsewhere.
Yeah.
But we only do what we're trained to do.
Right.
And that's sort of the toolkit we play with. And that, I mean, when I was in med school, hormones weren't talked about.
Yeah.
Maybe 20 minutes.
Yeah.
They just weren't talked about. How to properly lose weight wasn't talked about. And so I don't blame any of these providers. That wasn't their training. And the way the system's set up, they have to see so many patients so quickly.
Right.
These things take time. These are long, complicated conversations.
Yeah.
And their system isn't set up for that.
Yeah, there's 300,000 people that live in Wilmington, or probably even more now, I don't know, and only so many providers.
Yeah.
And you know, some of the things that we touched on earlier, like what we're seeing that are increasing in obesity and probably type 2 diabetes and all these other issues and symptoms that we have that are seeming to get more and more towards critical mass.
Yeah.
There's fewer providers to be able to treat those people.
Exactly right.
So that's why there's great people like you that are like, all right, let's get out ahead of it.
Yeah.
See, every provider should be thanking you, right? That is a specialist, because they're like, they're just decreasing the amount of work that I have to do as I'm getting closer to retirement.
Right. Yes. That's a good way of thinking about it.
That's great. Yeah, always looking for some silver lining there.
There you go.
So let's talk a little bit about, the Wilmington community, some ways that you serve. We've got 5 or 6 minutes left here.
Yeah.
We always like to find out, who's doing great work and with which group. So
Sure.
Are there any nonprofits that you like to get involved with, civic organizations? Talk a little bit about that. Shout some of those people out.
Yeah, I think a couple of them. And one is kind of just from personal experience. So the Cape Fear Heart Ball, love that organization, love the work they do. And that one hits home for me because my brother, who is about 10 years older than me, he had a cardiac arrest 4 years ago.
Wow.
And no pulse, all the things. And it was the heart doctors that got him back.
Thank God he's alive.
And alive now. And so heart issues, heart care is like super near and dear to me. Because of it hit home for us. That's definitely one. Another one is, given that coming up on the Christmas season, and I can't believe we're already talking about the Christmas
wild.
season.
I know, it's wild.
Yeah. So there is an organization called Free Christmas ILM.
Okay.
That was started by Molly, who does a fantastic job. And it started out very small, like I think maybe just in her garage, where they were like, I'm going to collect some toys. I'm going to let people come that are underprivileged and come and shop in my garage for free.
Nice.
To provide their children a Christmas. Well, then she has exploded it over the last 4 or 5 years.
That's amazing.
And now there's churches and businesses and everyone like hopping in, like, I'll store some of the toys and I'll collect toys. And she's done a fantastic job with it. And it does such a great service for these underprivileged families, and allows the community, businesses and all these people to come together for a common cause. Like, let's all get in on that.
Yeah.
And let's make it the biggest Christmas ever.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic.
That's awesome. That's what Christmas is all about. I'm using the cliche.
There we go.
Don't let the Marines know that she's stepping on Toys for Tots territory.
Of course not. Right. Yeah, exactly.
The difference being the families can go and pick out what it is that they want in her garage. We'll throw that caveat out there, Toys for Tots. Another great program. Free Christmas ILM. That's what that's called. We'll throw the link to her organization page in the comments. People can get involved with that. Sure. Yeah, it's so wild to think. It's chilly out today. It's like in the 40s. Came out of nowhere. It'll still be 75, 77 in the afternoon. But it is like 2024 has flown by.
Indeed.
And we're already staring down Halloween and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's. It'll be here before we know it.
Yeah.
Which is a great place to be for the holidays. Like, I like it in this area. I've played golf the day after Christmas over almost every year. So it's not we don't have bad winters here, that's for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. We have since moving down here, we've got 3 young kids, and every Christmas day we take a trip to the beach.
Nice.
And we hang out on the beach for a few. And I mean, where can you do that on Christmas? Right?
Not many. I mean, South Florida.
There you go.
Maybe,
there you go. Right.
You don't actually get any fall in South Florida,
For sure.
so there's a little bit of a trade.
Yeah, it's fun to be a little chilly, but still out there near the water and on the sand.
Yeah. So talk to us a little bit in our last couple of minutes who you have working at your clinic, because you've got a couple of mid-level providers, some people who specialize in some things, and then we'll give people a way to find you and get in touch with you if they want to learn more about BioSymmetry.
Yeah. So, our staff, we've got a staff of total of 7 now. We just added the second nurse practitioner. We just added the second office in Leland. And so we have the 2 offices open now. And there's myself, Kaylee, our newest nurse practitioner, as well as Mackenzie, that's been with us for going on 6 months now. And so they have been great additions to the team and are allowing us to be able to expand our services and reach more and more of these people. Because as you alluded to, there aren't enough providers.
Yeah.
And so we're getting them trained. We're all doing the same training. We're all on the same page, and it's been great so far.
That's great. So location open in Leland.
Yes.
Where's the one in Wilmington?
Racing Drive.
Okay.
Yep.
Right over by Home Depot.
That's right.
I know where that is.
Yep.
And then where's the one in Leland?
The Waterford Medical Center.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So right as you enter into Leland, right there on the right on the third floor. Yep.
Okay. And then if people want to get in touch with you, best way to go is the website. And
yeah,
how do you
website
recommend?
BioSymmetryWilmington.com is great, and our phone number is 910-399-6661.
Okay.
So they can reach out. We'll get right back to them and get them started.
Awesome. Thanks for being here, Dr. Holmes. I really
Appreciate the time.
appreciate it. That's going to do it for this episode of the Connect Cape Fear podcast. Until next time, go out and enjoy this great place that we call home. Support awesome businesses like BioSymmetry of Wilmington, and also work with our great civic organizations, our nonprofits. It was Free Christmas ILM.
Yeah.
Free Christmas ILM. That one's new. It's the first time I've ever heard of it, but going to check it out for myself. And if we don't talk to you until then, have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. We'll see you next time on the Connect Cape Fear podcast. Thanks for being here.